Right, so today we're going to be talking about the artwork of chasing Homer and multimedia expression in literature. Collaboration in the world of literature is often overlooked and looked down upon in academic circles, and is relegated to the realm of children's books, comic books, manga, and other forms of media which are seen by lesser, often in the academic community, well, the older academic community anyway. In the modern age, literature should do more to evolve into an increasingly multimedia world where everything that we read is accompanied by video or images or some other stimulant, and attention spans are increasingly shorter. Accessibility and adaptation is key to the survival of any discipline, and literature especially, because as attention spans wane and as people become more addicted to social media, they read less and less, and this is reflected in current book sales. So, art, music, and video not only have the potential to make literature more accessible, but have the potential to greatly enhance the argument of a novel or narrative piece by adding thematic content, characterization, and other information that would otherwise be difficult or impossible to convey with literature alone. Using Homer is the multimedia work of Hungarian author and recent Nobel Prize laureate Laszlo Krasznahorkai, artist Max Newman, and composer Sylvester Miklos. It features a track and an artwork for each chapter that vicariously texture and represent the narrator's state of self. It follows the free-flowing mental dialogue of an unnamed narrator, relentlessly pursued by faceless, possibly imagined, and impossible assassins that chase him from country to country without relenting. I wrote a book in the essential rhetorical and marketing component. After all, it's the first thing anyone's going to see when they look at a book. It's the first experience they're going to have with the content of that book. And it's the thing that's going to make them want to purchase it, whether it's just to look great on their shelf or their table or to actually read. Um, and that's a good cover. But a great cover should be a complementary word of its own, adding to the thematic content of the book instead of simply summarizing it. Here, Newman really does succeed. His use of voided form, as seen on the right, creates a feeling of absence and a literal embodiment of the absence of self that the narrator increasingly adapts to become an integral part of that multitude or grander society in general, as he tries to erase his identity in order to elude his killers. And this is a great metaphor and thematic piece of the novel, is that it seems to address the anxiety of isolation and paranoia in modern society. Work appears in the first section of the book, fittingly labeled abstract, where the initial conditions of the narrator's scenario are laid out. The image appears to be of a condemned, tousled man in a prisoner's uniform, with all his identifying features scribbled out. The method of identity erasure here is very interesting historically. It is often used in war photos to erase the identity either of victims or of the perpetrators of crimes, torture, and death, either to protect the inflictors or to protect the victim's identity. This is a very interesting choice on Newman's part, and I have no doubt it was intentional. It portrays this erasure of identity not just through a sense of loss of self, but a sense of guilt, where the self is ablated because of the guilt. Um, and there is something undeniably onerous and strange and sort of criminal about the figure of the man, as though you've seen him a million times in a million mugshots, um, which is a fascinating psychological addition. Here, Newman presents a figure obfuscated inside of a cloud of darkness. This chapter relates to sheltered places. The narrator details how one should avoid sheltered places because that is exactly where the pursuers and assassins expect you to go. This increase of paranoia is represented by this cloud, this anxiety, this helplessness, this fear, this unknowing. And it's very clearly juxtaposed against the image of a building, a very modern silhouette of a building, like something you would see built after 1950. And it seems as though the figure is pointed in the direction of the building. This is a clear representation of the safe place. The narrator is, the figure is covered in a cloud of fear and doubt, and it seems as though he believes that going to the sheltered place will clear him away of these fears. In reality, that is the most dangerous folly he can give into, according to the book. This furthers the novel's main points and arguments about the absurd fear and unnatural modern world, and it's an alienation we feel in large, crowded places, and places where we are unindividualized. We must blend in. We must conform to the greater norms of society. Newman's work in this chapter is less directly interpretive. It's a little more difficult to parse out what the meaning is in this. Um, but as we can see, this chapter is relating to insanity, the narrator's thoughts on his own insanity and the probability that he might be insane uh, because of he has indulged too much in sloth and laziness and inactivity. Newman presents us with a very disfigured and ancient looking figure in front of a podium, or what appears to be a podium. This, in conjunction with the theme of insanity, broadens the theme of the book. Pulpit and the horrifically aged figure are immediately associated with certain political factions, religious factions, and fanatical lies and fabrications to the modern eye, such as when President Nixon got up to the press thing and said, "I am not a crook," for Watergate. Uh, this pulpit has become a symbol of lies and this sort of underground conspiracy theory that has propagated in the modern world, which relates directly to the novel's theme of paranoia and anxiety and this fear that someone is after you. After all, why do paranoids always think? Who do paranoids always think is after them? It's the government, it's the politicians, it's the cabal, it's the Illuminati, whatever. This section drawing, this section's drawing portrays a figure with another figure superimposed over it in red, along with what appear to be falling leaves. With the help of the context of this section, where the narrator gives a detailed guide to moving about in crowds to escape the pursuers and escape being harmed in the crowd. We can assume that this is representative of loss of oneself within a greater other, where a figure within this other figure, sort of a confusion of lines between people. That furthers what the book says, in which he has to become an integral part of this larger whole, which erases his own sense of identity. After the narrator tells us how to adapt to our terrain or to our social environment. He details how he interacts with other people, how he chooses specific phrases so neutral that they practically don't exist and will leave no trace of him in the mind of the listener. In this case, Newman has diverged from his traditional human silhouettes and has created an almost monster-like figure with a void in its belly, and he is spitting orbs of pure blackness. This is pretty obviously representative of the narrator's descent into inhumanity as he conforms more and more to the crowd and he gives himself more. He no longer sees himself as human or as an individual. The orbs themselves represent these void, empty phrases he has set out to the world so that he will leave no trace and leave no way of his pursuers finding him. They are the empty, facile phrases of everyday society. The use of multimedia and Chasing Homer serves to bolster the novel's characterization, interactivity, and themes. Newman's artwork is as essential to this book as the words themselves. With hopefully with time, multimedia collaborations will reach out of so-called inferior realm of comic books and whatever. Not really inferior, but people think that, into higher literature as it has in this book. And hopefully that will help a resurgence of literature and to keep literature relevant.